Welcome back to the Hardware Unboxed News Corner. The week after CES isn't always the biggest for news, but surprisingly, there's been a few stories to emerge that are worth discussing, some price cuts and also some rumors as always. And of course, this is all in the lead up to next week, where we will have our first major hardware review of the year in the AMD Radeon RX 5600 XT. So yeah, get excited for that. And this first story relates to the RX 5600 XT. Nvidia has cut the price of the GeForce RTX 2060 to just $300 in the United States, down from $350, starting first with EVGA's new RTX 2060 KO graphics card that was first unveiled at CES, and now with the official Founders Edition model Nvidia sells on their website. A couple of other models approach the $300 price as well, including Gigabyte's RTX 2060 OC if you activate its rebate. There are some question marks over whether this is an official and permanent price cut or just a temporary price reduction around the release of the RX 5600 XT. Nvidia's email was a little unclear on that matter, but I'm leaning more towards a permanent drop given the price cut on the FE model. If Nvidia is dropping the price on the model they sell, we can expect OEMs to follow, and it seems like they already are. Nvidia rarely makes widespread official price cuts to their GPUs, but one adjustment per generation is kind of common. With Pascal, for example, Nvidia launched the GeForce GTX 1080 at $600, but when the GTX 1080 Ti launched at $700, they dropped the 1080 down to $500. Getting a price cut without a new product launch alongside it is a bit out of the ordinary though. Nvidia tends to just let pricing fall naturally over time. Now, some people will say the RTX 2060 should have launched at $300, and yeah, it's hard to argue with that. $350 always felt like a bit much for the 2060, and having the 2060 Super come in at $400 didn't make things much better. $300 is a pretty decent price for the 2060 though, although we'll have to wait until Steve's review of the RX 5600 XT next week to get the up-to-date cost per frame information from the latest collection of games that we've tested. The other question that's raised by this price cut is whether Nvidia is feeling the pressure of the RX 5600 XT. For that, it's hard to say without knowing how the 5600 XT performs. AMD's comparisons show it putting up a decent fight against sub $300 cards like the GTX 1660 Ti and GTX 1660 Super, so maybe Nvidia felt they wanted to be as competitive as possible in this price range. But even this data doesn't entirely suggest the 5600 XT is a slam dunk for AMD, given the 1660 Super is a pretty attractive card at $230. Having the RTX 2060 priced at $300 also puts the position of the 1660 Ti in question. The 2060 is about 20% faster than the 1660 Ti in our data, but with the 1660 Ti still retailing for $280, this makes the RTX 2060 just 7% more expensive, so 20% faster for about 7% more. The 1660 Ti hasn't been the best deal in this price range for a little while now, but it is a bit surprising to see a price cut to the 2060 to this extent without the 1660 Ti also receiving a small reduction. Anyway, it's good to see increased competition in the mid-range market. If AMD is putting the pressure on Nvidia and the result is cheaper graphics cards, that's great news for every gamer out there. Hopefully Nvidia will also feel the need to reduce the price of the RTX 2070 Super in due time. I think a $50 price cut to that card as well would be pretty nice. In other price cut news, Asus has slashed the price of their RX 5700 and RX 5700 XT Tough Gaming X3 graphics cards. Normally we don't talk about specific board partners dropping prices because that happens all the time, but I feel this is a special case that's worth talking about, as Steve already did through our Twitter feed a few days ago. But in case you don't follow us on Twitter, here's the deal with this one. The Asus RX 5700 series Tough cards, yeah, they're bad products. We reviewed the RX 5700 XT version on the channel back in October, describing it as the worst 5700 XT on the market. The cooler in general is inadequate, leading to a card that runs hot and loud, but worst of all, the cooling for the GDDR6 memory modules is completely insufficient and basically useless, causing temperatures so hot they run above their maximum rated temperature. But it gets worse because the RX 5700 non-XT variant has no GDDR6 memory cooling at all. We've seen a few reviews on YouTube from people like KitGuru who show that the GDDR6 modules are visible through the cooler with nothing touching them at all. No heat spreader, no thermal pads, nothing. GDDR6 is a high performance part that requires cooling, so it's no surprise buyers have run into the same heat issues with that card. Both these cards also have terrible user reviews on Newegg, frequently talking about how loud the card is, plus issues with crashing and instability, which could be related to the memory running so hot. Now, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up in conjunction with the news of price cuts is this. Don't be fooled by the cheap price for these cards. They are bad and they're not worth buying. They have fundamental flaws in the design, and you'll be far better off spending a few dollars more to get a good quality model that will last you a while. I mean, the RX 5700 XT tough model has only been cut to $390, and the RX 5700 is merely an MSRP product now. If you're interested in the RX 5700 XT, Gigabyte's model has been seen as low as $380, and there are plenty of other decent models at $400. For the RX 5700, the tough isn't even the cheapest card. The XFX version is $330, and if you had around $350 to spend, again, spending $10 more for something like a Power Color Red Dragon is going to serve you much better. So yeah, this is a warning for people considering the tough models, although if you are subscribed to Hardware Unboxed, you'll probably have already seen us call these cards garbage on multiple occasions. Anyway, let's move on to a different story. And we have another story about price cuts here, this one featuring an Intel product. So we've had, the trifecta here of Nvidia, AMD, and Intel related price reductions. Anyway, the Intel version of the story concerns their Xeon products, where the company is both discontinuing some products as well as cutting the price on others. The Xeons in question are part of their Cascade Lake SP series, otherwise known as the second generation Xeon scalable family. So these are the high core count server parts using the LGA 3647 socket. Up to 28 cores are provided, and of course there are many other Xeon lineups as well, but this is really the major one for server installations. The changes Intel are making are to some of the CPU configurations that are available. Some of Intel's Cascade Lake X processors are available in M and L versions, M indicating medium memory support for up to 2 terabytes, and L meaning large memory support for up to 4.5 terabytes. The base model parts support up to 1.5 terabytes of memory, and most of Intel's lineup are these base parts. There are only a few CPUs that come in M and L versions, usually the higher end stuff. All M versions, the ones with 2 terabytes of memory support, are being discontinued. Normally these CPUs came with around a $3,000 price premium over the base models, but it seems, they weren't that popular, with buyers either opting for the base or the L models depending on their needs. So Intel, they're no longer bothering with them. The L versions are also getting a price reduction, often a substantial price reduction, to bring L pricing more in line with where M models used to be. So for example, the Xeon Platinum 8280L used to cost $17,906. Yep. $17,906, but it is now going to sell for the low price of $13,012, which is, the old price for the M variant. So this is just shy of a $5,000 discount. These sorts of price reductions in the server market are highly unusual for Intel, who have stuck with their pricing model for years now. This seems a clear response to AMD's Epic Rome lineup, which offers 4 terabytes of memory support per socket across the entire lineup, often at significantly lower prices. Charging customers $3,000 to get 2 terabytes of memory support doesn't seem justifiable in Intel's lineup anymore, with that price now getting you a server chip with slightly more memory support than Epic offers at 4.5 terabytes. And once again, this is why competition is so important. AMD having competitive products in the server market looks to have shaken up pricing in Intel's Xeon lineup, and that's what we like to see, and I think Intel may need to cut prices further if AMD continues to see strong sales for their Epic products. All right, let's talk about these RX 5950 XT rumors. This one comes from an EEC submission by AFOX, which is a board partner, one of the lesser known ones, but a board partner nonetheless. Anyway, they made a bunch of submissions to the EEC, or at least a partner of theirs did, for cards including the RX 5950 XT, RX 5950, RX 5900, and RX 5800 XT, which so far are unreleased and unconfirmed products. Naturally, this sent the internet into a bit of a craze given the excitement surrounding Big Navi. But I'd encourage people to temper their expectations on this one. Making this sort of submission to the EEC is not an indication that the product is coming or even exists. In fact, we saw Sapphire do exactly the same thing back in June of 2019 with cards including the RX 5950 XT, and so far there's been no other hint that that those cards exist or will officially be called that. What these submissions do allow is board partners to get ahead of the curve in the event these cards eventually get confirmed and announced. Sometimes submitting products and getting approval through various regulatory bodies can take a while, so if you submit it early, so early that the product doesn't even exist yet, you can avoid any delays during the crunch when you're actually preparing them for sale. AFOX even said in a statement that it was a Russian partner that added these cards for import and that AFOX did not produce them. So basically these are just placeholders added by a Russian partner, not some confirmation that the RX 5950 XT exists. So sorry to burst the bubble of big Navi fans there. It doesn't sound like this one is actually any indication of anything. But that said, AMD has said the big Navi is coming. We just don't have any other concrete information yet. We still expect personally big Navi to be a second gen RDNA product, which would potentially mean it'd fall under RX 6000 series branding, but we haven't heard anything concrete about that. So we'll just leave that to the rumor mill for now. Another rumor from earlier this week is a bit more plausible. According to Computer Base, Intel are preparing a 22-core CPU for their Cascade Lake X series using some variation of Intel's XCC die. Apparently this was a rumor floating around CES 2020 from various motherboard partners and was recently exposed through a CPU-Z screenshot from ChipHell. Not that I'm saying that's particularly accurate because you can fake those sort of things, but yeah, one was shown off. While the 22-core CPU does sound plausible, the rest of the stuff, yeah, should be taken with a grain of salt as always. The screenshot shows the CPU with the 380 watt TDP and a 4.0 GHz base with a 5 GHz turbo. This is much higher than the 165 watt TDP of the Core i9-10980XE, although that chip has a base clock of just 3.0 GHz across 18 cores. Increasing that to 4 GHz across more cores will definitely cause a significant increase to power requirements, and we've already seen huge power draws when overclocking existing parts. But who knows whether it will actually end up at a 380 watt TDP. It's also unclear how Intel would take their extreme core count XCC die and bring that to the LGA 2066 platform. Current Cascade Lake X chips top out at 18 cores, the largest available with the LCC die. XCC chips have been restricted to the LGA 3647 socket, which is where we've seen Xeon CPUs up to 28 cores for both server and workstation use cases. So yeah, who knows what is going on there. It makes sense that Intel would want to have a more powerful 8GDT CPU, given the 18-core Core i9-10980XE gets easily beaten by AMD's Threadripper lineup. In fact, the 10980XE often gets beaten by the Ryzen 9 3950X, let alone the Threadripper 3960X 24-core part. Whether or not they'll try reach 3960X level performance with a higher core count, higher clocked CPU with a massive power draw is another question, so I guess we'll mark this under dubious but possible. Alright, some quick fire topics to round this news corner out. Intel will detail their Xe GPU architecture at GDC in March. That's basically the whole story. If you're interested in what Intel is doing with Xe in both their discrete and integrated products, GDC, which is held on March 16 to 20, is the place to get that information. Expect discussion on all sorts of architectural aspects ahead of its inclusion in some products later this year. Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed to September 17th, another story that's easily summarized in a single line. That's basically all the information you need to know. Originally, the highly anticipated game was set for launch on April 17, but it seems the developers needed more time on polish. This is almost always a good thing. Delaying games to get it right is better than launching a broken and buggy game, so yeah, I don't mind things getting delayed. And finally, Microsoft has officially stopped supporting Windows 7 as of a couple of days ago. This was a long time coming. Windows 7 has been around since 2009, but after 10 years, they're not supplying any official patches anymore outside of business customers who pay for extended support. Lots of people use Windows 7, but now all those people will be vulnerable to security flaws that crop up. So yeah, might be time to consider a bit of an upgrade there. That's it for this week's News Corner. As always, you can subscribe to get this segment in your inbox every week. We tend to get these out on Friday. You can also subscribe to our Patreon page if you're interested in some of the perks there, like access to our monthly live streams. We just did that earlier this week with Steve and I. You can also chat to us at any time in our Discord chat, which is available through Patreon as well. We also have the merch store if you're interested in hoodies like this. Check that out. Links in the description below, and I'll catch you in the next one.